The views, opinions, and advice shared on this episode are for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice. For full disclosure, at the time of recording, both Ryan and Sterling are personal investors in Goalsetter.
I didn't even have to know what an APR or what it was. I was just like, no, if I can't pay it, I'm not going to get it. So when I would see people at Stanford, I would just put it on my card. And I was like,
and by people, you mean?
Yo, black ass. I was like, you can't.
You mean me, specifically.
That's what I just said. I was like, she can't afford that. You know
And he
what I'm
was
saying?
right, dear reader. He was absolutely right. This is We Don't Always Agree, the podcast where we thrive on hard conversations. I'm Ryan Michelle Bethea.
And I'm Sterling K. Brown.
We said I do almost 20 years ago. And two things about us: we love each other deeply and we can disagree deeply about a lot of things.
That's just true, but we've been learning how to disagree healthily. And this show is our way of pulling back the curtain and sharing our evolution with you. Bird, is you ready?
Child, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Let's go, big dog. We Don't Always Agree is recorded at the Blackbird House flagship in Culver City, California. Yo, here we are.
All right, we are back. Are we back?
What?
We're back.
A new episode.
I know,
bro.
but we're back again.
Yeah,
You know,
we're back
what is
again.
it?
I thought you were like doing like a commercial
back again.
break or
There's
something.
a song, something, back again. What
Check
is
to the left and let's begin. Party people in the house, jump, rejoice. Who? Okay, come on, stop.
Maybe that's why.
You're
There's
dumb.
an age-old
Start the
wealth
show,
gap.
man.
I am. There's an age-old wealth gap. Usually probably because there's people like me doing this when they're trying to be serious. There is a wealth gap between Black folks and our white counterparts for many, many reasons. Not just for the dancing, but because it's systemic, right?
So
Right. Well, there's
yes.
because I want to give some little facts and figures
Go
just to
ahead. What's
give
your
context
facts? Give
around
your facts,
this.
give your figures.
In 2002, there was a Federal Reserve consumer survey that showed that white households' median wealth is more than 5 times that of Black households. So you are good with numbers. So what is that? If the Black household is $20,000, that means the white household median is $100,000.
Good girl. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You got that.
But in all
Quick.
seriousness, that's
Quick
a
math.
huge gap. And you know, one of the things that has been spoken about a lot is systemic racism and how and what that means and what does it mean to come from all of the things that we've come through. But if you really want to quantify it, that is a very good way to wrap your brain around the vestiges and the historical ramifications of not only slavery, not only Jim Crow, but redlining and all the other things that went on.
It's massive. It's massive because while we are blessed right now to be in a pretty good financial situation, but when you are sort of like the people in your family that are in that good situation, there's a tax that comes along with it from time to time and a desire to be of service and of help.
Very
right?
much so.
So in that, and we're talking about generational wealth and everything that goes into building it, like it can be a bit more precarious for us, given the fact that you're trying to lift everybody up at the same time. Or a lot of folks who are in different situations that you mentioned from that, 5-to-1 ratio, they're like, their other family members are probably in a better situation, so they don't feel that pull to make the same sort of or being pulled in the same way to be of service in that way. They're like, oh, I can take care of myself and build for our generation. So we're talking about generational wealth. We're talking about what we learned and did not learn about money growing up.
And how we want to shift that for our kids.
Because folks can be real tight-lipped and quiet. Oh, we don't talk about.
Or that's grown folks' business.
That's grown, one of those sort of things.
you know.
We don't talk about some of the choices that we made, both positive and negative with regards to how we've dealt with our own finances. And then sort of the legacy that we want to leave for our children, for our community.
Beyond just dollar signs.
Well, dollars too, but all of it. So let's jump in.
Okay, great. All right.
Talk to me about what did you learn about money growing up?
Okay, this is an interesting question because, we've talked a lot about family and things like that.
Yeah.
But one thing that I want to kind of talk about in terms of my family is that I feel like I had two sort of sets of families growing up, right?
Explain.
Like I had my, so my mom and my biological father were not married. And then It is a very long story, but
It's a
just
long
suffice
story.
it
That's
to
for
say that it
another
was it's
podcast.
another podcast.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say that it was me, my mom, my grandmother, right?
Okay.
I put that in the sort of first chunk of from birth to like 8,
Okay.
you know? And from birth to 8, I feel like I was exposed to money, but as a problem, right? Money was a problem. We either didn't have enough of it or we
Okay.
wanted more. And, you know, my grandmother played the lotto. There was a lot of dreaming of what when I get the lotto and saving and layaway and she was a senior citizen while she was raising me. My mother left me to pursue her dreams in New York. And I stayed back home in St. Louis with my grandmother.
Yeah.
So I can remember I always thought that the food stamps were so much prettier than the regular dollars because food stamps came in different colors. So
this is interesting.
No, and I can remember her pulling, and they had a shine to them.
Yeah,
They had like a
yeah.
little shine.
They shine.
And I can remember that. I can remember back
So
in the
you remember growing up and you're like, oh, I want food stamps.
Well, I didn't know they were food stamps. I just thought they were like the special money.
I hear you.
But I can also remember my grandmother counting pennies. I remember the checkbook, but it never, I didn't know what any of it really was, but they were very open about the money and just the struggle of it, and paying the bills. I knew bills were bad. And I knew bills were bad, and they came. And
this means a lot. This explains like your mail habits and how things get delivered. I'm like, hey, Bird, have you seen this bill? You're like, uh-huh. You gonna do anything? This is earlier in the relationship, and I was like, are you going to do something?
We will get to that part of this episode.
Okay.
So then when my mother remarried, not remarried, but when my mother got remarried to my stepfather. My stepfather, who I will refer to as my dad just in general, because he helped to raise me and we became very close over the years, and I loved him very much.
Yeah.
But he was very tight-lipped about money, and he was
successful.
He was a very successful man. He
Yeah.
was in corporate America, and he was actually one of the first Black people in information systems technology, which we now know as tech. So he was one of the first people to be in tech. He actually started a company called ISMMF, which was to get more Black people. IS something MF. Anyway, the point is that
motherfucker.
That's what I said. He didn't even tell me that he had this. No, it wasn't until my dad died that I knew he had started this company. I mean, this organization. Again, talking about what he didn't tell me.
Yeah.
My dad never told me that he started this organization to make sure that there were more Black people in STEM before there was even a word for STEM.
Yeah.
And it was a huge organization. My point is that to answer the question, I didn't even know. I didn't even know until my dad passed away what he was up to. From 8 on, I didn't know anything about I did not know how much my father made until he forced me to fill out the FAFSA. And
he
so
forced you?
Yes, I was 18. I was 17. I was about to go to Stanford, and he forced me to fill out a financial aid application. And my father at the time,
you know why this is funny? Is because your father made goo gobs of cash.
I did not know until he filled it out.
You better fill out this FAFSA.
No, he did. He was insisting. He said to me, upon finding out that I had got into all the schools that I got into, and everybody was calling from all over the country and congratulating us in the store, my dad said to me, I guess it's great that you got in all these schools, but you better find some money to go to one of these schools. I don't know where you think it's gonna come from, a damn tree. I always thought we never had enough because my father very much came from lack. Okay. Everything around him was lack.
I'm going to say I did not grow up with as much as you had, but all of our needs were met. My mother and father owned their home, and Mom told me she bought this house in 1975. It cost $30,000, and she said, "I, as a school teacher, make $30,000 a year. Your father, as a grocery clerk at Kroger stores, makes $30,000 a year. So this house is affordable for us. We're not putting ourselves out. Like, I know that with my paycheck or with his in a year, we could, essentially pay for it. So don't ever live beyond your means." That was like my mom's lesson.
You took that to heart.
Do not spend money that you do not have, right? She did say this. Because I don't know if we talked about this. She said, tithe 10%, save 10%, right? And then you live off the other 80. You know what I'm saying? In terms of bills and everything like that, right? She also talk to me. Sometimes I say, "Hey, Mama, can I get so-and-so, this Nintendo, da-da-da-da-da?" And she would say, like, is that a need or a want?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I need this Nintendo, woman. And she's like, you don't need that. So then I had to go ahead and find my own money. Like I was like, actually like one Christmas, I was like, if everybody in the family could contribute $5, and I had like 24 people do that, and then I have $120 because the first Nintendo cost $120. And they said, oh, boy, we give you $5. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm gonna make it easy for you to give me the stuff that I want, right? But it was also this level of transparency because my dad passed away when I was 10. And she's like, look, we're in this thing together. And so she would show me the bills. This is what water costs. This is what electricity costs. Like, we didn't have exorbitant expenses, but like, she's like, I'm going around behind you turning off this light. Because when you turn off the light, you're saving money, right? When you leave the door open, like the free-flowing Negro that you are, the air conditioner also leaves the house with your black ass. In or out, dog. In or out, and close the door behind you. You know what I'm saying? And it's so funny because I find myself trying to instill similar things to our children, but we're in a very privileged place. Like we're in a the whole idea of like cleaning your plate or whatnot comes from a scarcity mentality.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? You'll hear over and over again how people in Africa or wherever don't have this, so you got to appreciate it. And appreciating it is making sure that it gets
waste
used,
not, want not.
Right? So I still too, when my kids don't finish their plate, I'm like, but then I just go ahead and freeze it or put it in the refrigerator.
Well, that's what the first thing I did started doing during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, look, I'm gonna finish the plate because there was a panic around for me. I was like, I don't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
And the first thing was to revert back to old habits in terms of saving
and it takes a
wealth.
minute it takes conscientiousness to be like, why am I doing what am I doing? Why am I doing what am I Wait, I want to say a couple more things. Talk to me a lot about credit cards. Did Arlene Brown, my mother. She's like, do not get a credit card until you have a job that allows you to pay off that credit card every month in full. Because at its best, it is an interest-free loan. At its worst, it will get into your backside and take your multitudes, right? You know, I didn't even have to know what an APR or what it was. I was just like, no, if I can't pay it, I'm not gonna get it. So when I would see people at Stanford, I was gonna put it on my card. And I was like,
and by people, you mean
yo, black ass. I was like, you
mean
cannot.
me specifically.
That's what I just said. That's what I just said. I was like, she can't afford that. You know
and he was right, dear reader. He was absolutely right.
So while there wasn't like big talk, my mom did have like an investment person at A.G. Edwards. Because y'all know you have family members at A.G. Edwards.
My uncle,
there you go.
yeah.
So she would talk to me a little bit about investment, but she really just talked to me about sort of the ins and outs of like managing money on a monthly basis, a budget. So I think I had a really good idea of how to do that. Higher things in terms of investments, you know, stocks and things came later. But I was happy to have at least that base level of understanding. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah. What experiences put us? Because we definitely had a very different concept when it came to money. So what experiences do you think put us on the same page?
We used to argue so much.
Yes, we did.
We used to argue a lot.
We did.
I mean, it was a thing that probably early on caused, other than just like when one person was working and one person wasn't, like how we dealt with finances was a constant sort of battle. I think a couple of things happened. We got our house shortly after getting married, right? We got married first and then got the house, the
we
condo.
got the condo.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, based upon my current level of income, I was like, Ryan, this is the amount of money that I feel comfortable spending for us to find a spot. We wanted 2 bedrooms, we wanted 2 bathrooms, right? And we wanted to stay on the west side of LA. And so I gave you a number, and you'd be like, look at what I found. And like everything would be like $80,000, $100,000 over that number. I'd be like, Niggs, did you hear what I said? This is the number. She's like, we can't get enough of this, Sterling. What you talking about? I was like, we can find something decent for this number, right? So anyway, we found the condo and I was like, okay, I will try to meet you where you are. But it was a really interesting thing because at the time, this is pre-2000, 2006.
7, because it was right before
and then
the
2008
crash.
is when the crash happened. And you were telling me this story about going to church and like you can get home ownership or whatnot, and you don't have to put 20% down. You don't have to put anything down. They'll just give you a house. I'm like, this don't sound like what my mama told me. Like mama was like, put down 20% on everything.
Okay, so just to again, and this is a really important conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stop you there because I think
Please.
this is important.
Go ahead.
There was a time period in the early aughts when they were trying to, once again, and we're talking about intersectionality and being Black.
Getting Black
they
people
were
into
trying
the
to,
housing
right,
market.
They wanted Black people in the housing market. Now we understand why, the balloon, the APR, ARM, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So how that looked, ARM.
Adjustable rate
I said
mortgage.
ARM.
I just want to make sure because that's what we wound up with, and I'm going to come back to it.
I know. But what I'm trying to tell you is that I want people to understand systemically how these things trickle down.
Go ahead.
There is a gap between ownership, Black houses, white household, ownership, get a house, buy a house. What does that mean? So what they did was they went to community centers, they went to churches, they went to all of these things, and they told people to tell their people that you can get an adjustable rate mortgage. You can do this. You don't have to put any money down. And when you're taking a free class from West Angeles Church of God in Christ,
you get what you pay for, Jack. Holla.
What I'm trying to tell people and what I want people to understand was that it was coming from a trusted source for me.
Okay.
Coupled with
I can see that.
Prosperity gospel, coupled with, because that was very much a thing in the early odds. And it was very much like...
It goes directly against spending money that you ain't got.
Okay, but that's what I'm trying to say, Sterling, is that there was a lot of conversation around, this is how we build wealth. And this is how you do this. And this is how people have been doing it for years. And use your money to make money and da-da-da-da-da. And you hear all of these adages and you put it together and then somebody sits you in a class and says, this is how you buy a house.
Right.
What are you supposed to do other than think that, well, I'm doing something that is going to build wealth for my family? Now, I understand. And you were right. You were absolutely right.
Time.
Oh, sweet Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I ain't.
Go and take it to the king.
I ain't.
I don't know. Go on, you can continue.
I'm sorry, I was listening to...
Go ahead. I got you.
Oh, but I was listening to the president. I'm sorry. I'm a patriotic. I can't help the fact that I love my country.
Continue.
Anyway, so because of a love for my country and a love of God, I think I just want to put some context around how these things actually manifest in one human being and my story. Like my specific story about these big concepts trying to put on your shoulders, like, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to break the generational wealth curse. And using the things at your disposal. I didn't get this out the phone book. It was the Lord.
What would happen was that you constantly labeled me as being cheap.
Well, you are. And you were, Sterling.
What?
You were a little bit
I lived under my means.
Okay, can I also say, so
ahead.
this moving on to what the next part of this was, is we had a strike, right?
Yes.
And so I'm going to say the last part, I'm going to put the last part now. I'm going to jump out of order. The last part is that I definitely think that you and I have come to the middle.
I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that.
I think you've admitted, like, okay, there are times when I don't have to be as cheap. I can do this.
We're a good partnership.
We're a good partnership.
I don't like to spend money, and you do. And like, you don't spend money through... You're not frivolous with your expenditure of money, right?
And it was the writer's strike that allowed me to say, okay, you know what? There are always going to be things that you don't see coming. And yes, and the writer's strike coupled with the crash, the housing market crash and the boom, and realizing that
I just got an Army wife at that time. And I really do.
And we were lucky because the condo that we bought was one of the few condos that wasn't underwater when everything went down, because we got it under market value.
Sure. Yes.
So we were never underwater. So we never had to deal with that. I mean, and I realized at that moment that, like, maybe because I had gone to West Angeles Church of God of Christ and got my little, I was like, maybe there was a little blessing in there. And God was like, this girl is really trying. So let me go ahead on and bless her with this little extra $20,000 that made all the difference in terms of not being underwater. So I will say, again, and when we're talking about generational wealth and we're talking about building wealth, that was a stroke of luck. That had nothing to do with me, you, anybody. Like, that was just luck that we didn't end up underwater on this first condo. And then we were able to use that condo to, we haven't sold it. We still, and again,
I'll give you this credit, Bird. I'll say this, and I'm not even trying to humble brag. I'm just talking about how we're trying to build wealth. This was one thing that you insisted on, is trying to maintain properties. Where I was like, well, let's sell this one so we can get the next one. You're like, well, if we can make enough to where we don't have to sell it, but we can get something else. LA property is expensive and it appreciates in value. And I want to say thank you, because we do have a few pieces of property. And if it were up to me, we wouldn't. So.
Yes. And I want to say thank you for reminding me, if you want to keep this house, that means that we have to wait. We can't just go jump into the next house. Right. We have to make sure that we can keep this house.
So we can put 20% down on
so we
this
can
next
put 20% down. No, I mean, and I guess in all joking aside, that's how the partnership, I think, really did come together, because one of the things that was the worst argument in our relationship ultimately became something that I think we both are very proud of, in terms of how we are now able to talk about money very freely and really listen to one another.
I agree.
Right? Since we talked a little bit about what it was like for me and how it was for you in terms of growing up, I want to give credit where credit is due to Arlene Brown.
Snaps.
Love
you, Ma.
For making sure that everything was very transparent between you and she.
Yeah.
And it also feels like your household was your house. She gave you ownership. Without entitlement. So how do you think we are going to continue to teach our children to respect the privilege and access they have without
entitlement? Because we talk about this a lot. Like, our kids are growing up very differently than us.
Than either one of us, for sure.
Quick anecdote. When I graduated from high school, my mom was very concerned about me having senioritis second semester, senior year. She said, if you get all A's, I give you $1,000. I was like, she ain't said nothing but a word, bruh. Talk less, Ma. I went out, I got all A's second semester, senior year. She gave me $1,000. Within a week of the graduation, she said, hey, listen, you earned that money. You worked hard for it. It is yours. I have a couple of bills coming up that I need to pay. Would it be possible to get a loan? She asked me for a loan. My mother asked her son that she just gave $1,000 for a loan. I said, Mama, you can take the money. She said, I'm not asking for it. I said, that's okay. Take the money. Because my mom made a promise and she owned that promise. And I did not want to put her through her paces in any shape, form, or fashion. I was like, take it. And then at that mind at 18, I was like, Brown, you got to make this shit happen. It's not about a fallback sort of thing. I have a single mom who's been, early retirement. Then just a couple of years later, she adopted babies, she had 3 babies in her house. And I was like, and I would listen to other friends be like, yeah, I called my mom and my dad and they gave me a little thing. And I was like, that must be nice. That must be really cool. But at the same time, I was fucking focused, son. You know what I'm saying? When they say focus, man, when you know you can't go back, you're like, I have no other choice but to be focused, right? So now our kids have options.
They do. They absolutely do. They absolutely do.
And
they have
figuring out like what it means to instill grit to get for yourself, because as our teacher, Jim Calder, once told us, what you do for your children, they don't have to do for themselves.
That's right. He lives in my head, because this is what I'm always like, dude, but Jim, like, I don't want my children to ever feel like this is my house, not your house.
No, right? So we're
because that's how I was taught.
We are in the midst of finding the balance in between. So listen, in this one, we don't always agree, but today it looks like we're doing better.
I hope people have put this in their calendars. This is 2024 manifest. We have agreed.
We're doing better.
We are aligned.
We used to argue a lot, and we don't anymore.
There is hope.
There's a blessing.
There is hope.
Lesson: earn more money first.
So what do we agree and disagree on?
We agree. We do tithe. We talk a little bit about that. Like, it is that sort of like spiritual centering and believing in the law of circulation.
Very much
that
so.
putting something out is like sowing a seed that comes back to you.
Yes,
right? Like
yes,
I
yes.
think we are living proof that that is the truth. I think that 10% is the most important 10% that I put out into the world.
We agree. I used to tithe on my unemployment checks.
Yes.
Yes.
You used to get mad at me for not taking unemployment. I'd be like, I don't want no welfare. And I was like, it's true, it's not welfare.
Yes, and I was like, we paid into the system. We paid into this money on the table. But I tithed on that money on the table. And what else do we?
We want to set our children up for success.
Yes.
We're in the midst of figuring out what that looks like. Given the fact that like they're not coming from hardship. Like they're not coming from struggle. And so like they can still have respect and appreciation for it. Because I've seen people who not come from struggle appreciate money.
So yeah. So we know that it's possible.
Exactly.
So we both agree on trying to figure out how we raise them to be. I mean, and so far, like, Amari and Andrew, they see people, we have to give money. When they see, we live in LA and there are a lot of people who are unhoused.
Yeah.
And so we make sure that we have dollars. And every time we give a dollar, we say the prayer. We say a prayer like, may this be enough for this person. May this person have what they need in this moment. And we are grateful for that we have what we need in this moment.
Yeah.
And God, whatever we can do to continue to pray for this person, that their blessings and wealth be manifest in their life, right? We pray that prayer.
They are empathetic beings. When they see people with less than, they're able to recognize, oh, we have something that they don't. So I appreciate that they have that.
Same.
Okay. All right. So we agree on a lot of stuff about this money. And we had a guest coming up joining us today because she's doing amazing things at the intersection of tech and financial literacy. So we want to share the wealth literally. So stay tuned for more. We don't always agree, even though today we're doing all right. Okay.
Okay, we're back.
Yes.
I am so excited. And believe it or not, our next guest is Tanya Vancourt, who is everything and amazing and wonderful. And I didn't just call her just because she is my friend and my sister and my soror and my chapter soror and a Stanford woman and a Stanford grad and all of those things and my profile. I did not call her because of those things. I called her because there is no better person to talk to about what it is to conceptualize and begin to build generational wealth than Tanya Vancourt, who has had a wealth of experiences in corporate America and at the tech and all of the things, and has been able to synthesize that to say, how can I use all of those things to do the things that I love and support the community that I love. She is the founder of the Goal Setter app, okay, which she'll get into, but just so you guys know, it is, and we'll drop all this stuff obviously in the show notes, but it's a family financial literacy and savings app, right? She'll get more into it, and she's here to talk to us today all about all things generational wealth. And so, Tanya,
you gonna let her say something?
Darling,
go ahead.
Welcome to We Don't Always Agree. Thank you for being here, my dear friend.
Thank you for having me. And, just for the record, I loved your introduction of me, Ryan. Thank you so much.
See?
Oh, good.
Okay, we always gonna have each other.
Everybody, I love it. I love the sister love. Come on.
That's right.
Let's do a question now.
What are the biggest financial lessons you remember being taught growing up?
So, Ryan, that's a great question for me because my mother was an elementary school teacher in Oakland, California. And, when your mother's a teacher, she teaches you everything you need to know before you ever enter a school building. So I tell people I skipped kindergarten, not because I was particularly bright, but because my mother taught me my ABCs and, how to count 1 to 10 before I entered the school building. But the only thing that she did not teach me is she did not teach me about money because she didn't know about money, right? I come from an African-American household. My mom was a single mom of 6 kids. We all know this story. And so she didn't teach me much about this subject that she had not been taught about and that wasn't discussed in our community. So for me, the lessons that I learned about money are probably many of the same old adages that we all learn, like, don't let that money burn a hole in your pocket, right? And that was from my grandmother. And, you know, while it may have been simple, it also was really impactful to say every time you get money, you should not run out and plan as the first thing you do to spend that money. Now, she didn't have an answer necessarily for what I should do with the money, but she knew that it was important to convey to me that I shouldn't spend every dollar I got, right?
Okay.
So that was one of the first lessons. I'll tell you a second lesson, also again from my grandmother, that was really important for me. My grandmother had maybe an 8th grade education and came from the South, came from Oklahoma out to California. And she got a job at the post office. And at the post office, it was a blue collar job. She was sorting mail for all intents and purposes. And I remember her coming home and saying, those other women at the post office are spending all their money on cashmere sweaters. What do I need with a cashmere sweater? I need a house.
Okay. I like that.
And, my grandmother told me early on, we aren't renting people. We are buying people.
Wow. Okay.
And so those small morsels, right? Those were morsels that helped me to define very early on how I thought about money. I thought you can't spend all your money. I thought, oh my goodness, these people are spending all their money on luxury goods when they should be spending all their money on durable goods, right? I thought that my definition and how I look at myself should be as a person who owns and not just as a person who rents. And that changes your perspective early on who you are and on your relationship with money.
Those are incredible lessons to have had inculcated within you at a very young age. And they didn't get granular in terms of the specifics, but the general idea is that we don't rent, we own. We put our money towards things that aren't luxuries, but necessities and things that can sort of grow in value, right? Come on, Grandma. She was handling her business.
Yeah, she really was.
Will you tell people a little bit about your experience with the dot-com bust of 2000? Because I think it's something that folks might be able to vibe off of and understand and be like, oh, damn, it happens to everybody.
100%. So, I went to Stanford, and as you said, we walk around with the S on our chest, but that S that we walk around with, it doesn't have dollar signs, right? Like they don't teach you that at Stanford.
It has dollar signs that are like, oh, I have to pay. How much are you taking? There.
Yes, that's right. It only has tuition dollar signs. So I come out of Stanford and my whole family thinks like, oh, wow, Tanya, she has these 2 degrees in engineering, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. She's taking classes in the business school. She is the smart one in the family until I proved them wrong. So in my late 20s, I had a job in Silicon Valley and they gave me a bunch of stock and stock options. And when I tell you that this was the first time that I had ever heard the term stock or heard the term stock options, I mean, truly, I'm not kidding.
Wow.
It was not a part of my education. It certainly wasn't what Grandma was talking about, right? I mean, so I had never really had these discussions with anyone before. So I got the stock and the stock options and not knowing what to do with them, I just set them to the side, right? I didn't really focus on them.
Right.
And what I focused on was doing my job and doing a great job. I'm in Silicon Valley. I'm one of very few African-American women in Silicon Valley in a very senior role and a very important role in this burgeoning and growing company. And so it's critical for me to make sure that everyone knows I'm doing a great job. And so thinking about my own personal wealth was secondary. For me, the most important thing was that I was succeeding and excelling in my professional role and my professional reputation. So I'm focused on that. And I look up one day and that stock is somehow magically worth $1 million. And I'm 28 years old. And so I think to myself, wow, see, I did do the right thing. All you got to do is leave it there and it grows. But that was short-lived.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But that was short-lived.
And yeah.
So, at the beginning of the day, you're looking at a portfolio worth $1 million. During that day in 2001, that fateful day, the big NASDAQ bubble burst. And so all of the tech companies that were on the NASDAQ took a huge dive. All of the tech companies in Silicon Valley completely lost their shirts.
Yeah.
And all of the people who owned their stock did too. And so my $1 million at the beginning of the day was worth about $20,000 by the end of the day.
One day.
One.
Damn.
I think I can't even see Ryan's face. I think she just covered her face and went off camera. She was so abhorred.
I did. I literally did.
But Ryan, you can imagine that's how I felt when I was looking at my computer screen and I was like, wait, what is that saying? What goes down must go up? Is it going to reverse?
Right.
Go back? And no, it didn't.
Did it?
You're like, if I come back tomorrow, it'll be $1 million again.
Was it a situation where you decided you just left it there because there's nothing else to do, or did you take it out?
No, I left it there because I thought there's nothing really left to do, right? If it goes back up, then great, I have the benefit of it. If it doesn't, then, it's $20,000 that was not going to make or break my wealth story for the rest of my life.
Right.
But I will tell you, in those moments, you have to find some salve for your wound.
Yes.
Because if you don't, that wound will just make you bleed out. So
this is speaking of adages, this is the adage, you laugh to keep from crying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. 100%, Ryan. Thank you. I wish I'd had you there with me in 2001 so you could have, laughed with me because I think I was crying. But I thought to myself, you know what? You can't turn back the hands of time, Tanya, right? You can't turn this back and do something different with this stock. And by the way, in the moment, I had no idea what I could have done differently or should have done differently. Let's be clear.
Okay.
Because I still didn't know anything about core financial education or, asset allocation, diversification. I didn't know what those topics meant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really didn't know if this was like a cataclysm, like a tornado that you just can't avoid and you just have to duck. Or if there was something that I could have done differently or could have done to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I can't turn back the hands of time. All I can do is make sure this doesn't happen to my own kids when I have them. And that was that from my womb, right? That was I had to have learned this lesson for a reason.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to pass this lesson on to those who mean the most to me or who will mean the most to me because I didn't even have kids.
You didn't even have kids at that point, but you knew okay, I can't do anything about past me, but I can do something about future me-me's, like mini-me's.
Yeah.
Yes, me-me's.
And is that where the
future me-me's.
For future me-me's. Is that where the seed of the Goal Setter app started then? Like looking back, or did you know, obviously we didn't have apps back then, but maybe you were prescient and said we're going to have apps one day. I don't know.
No, it wasn't the seed of the goal. Well, yes, it was the seed of the Goal Setter app, but it wasn't taking its form as, I'm going to go and create an app. It was financial education is so important.
Mm-hmm,
and it's so important to teach the next generation so that they don't grow up to make these same fateful mistakes. And that really did inform many, many years later how I raised my daughter. Like from the moment she came out of the womb, I was like, okay, great. You finished nursing. So now let's go over what's a penny, what's a nickel, what's a dime, and what's a quarter.
Right after nursing. Let's get into this money now. I love it. Never too early.
No, but in all fairness, to sit there and to be, so many of us are the first in our family, right? To do X, Y, and Z, to have the money, to have the success, and to sit there and to see this money disappear it's either, it just had to have been like an emotional shock and a mental shock. And then also fill in the blank of, this happened because there is an entire world and you had gone to Stanford. You had gone to, you're taking classes at the business school. How is there this entire like wealth of knowledge that you didn't even know you didn't even know? How is that possible?
Like, these are things that everyone should have been taught. They're the basics, right?
Yeah.
This is not something that only wealthy people need to know. Every single day, people are starting a job and someone's handing them a 401k election sheet. And I know this now because now I've had hundreds of these conversations and they panic when they get that 401k election sheet. Like, I don't know what to do with this. Who do I call? I can't tell my HR manager, hey, I'm not really sure what to do with this. Can you choose my 401k elections for me? Right? What friends do I have in my Rolodex who I can call up who can help me with this? We have an entire ecosystem in America of people who are not knowledgeable about finances and are too ashamed to admit it.
I was going to say that.
And that's where the problem is.
Yeah, because it's like you get to a certain point in your life where you're like, I should know this.
Yes.
But I don't. And I don't want to really admit to people that I don't know it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a whole section in my life where I would go get books for dummies. I was like, all right, I don't know shit. So maybe I get this book for dummies. Like it'll teach me something. But honestly, it helped me with my first mutual funds, like through Vanguard or whatnot. I was like, I can at least manage this for myself. And I'm doing something with my money other than having it sit in the bank. But like even me, I was like, only close friends where I'd be like, hey man, what you doing with your money? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like having that conversation out loud, I think is something that people can admit to and sort of own more readily because we grow together, you know?
And I will admit to not knowing what a 401 election sheet is. I've never seen one. I don't know what you're talking. I was
it's
like,
a corporate American thing.
I'd be something, whatever it is. I don't know. I was like, you elect your like, do you hold office? Like, who's the president? Do you run? Like, I don't know. So I'll just be honest. I don't know.
Good for you, Bird.
I love that. I love that because you know what you just said, Ryan? You gave so many people permission to say, me too, right?
Yeah.
And Sterling, right? You gave so many people permission to say, oh, it's okay for me to go and buy a, retirement fund for dummies book right? Like, and that's what we need to do. We need to give people permission to say, I don't understand this, because the minute that you continue to operate as if you understand money when you really don't, that's the minute when you are losing. You are losing money. You are not investing it. You're investing it in the wrong places. So thank you for giving people permission to say, yeah, I don't really understand that either. Well, that's great.
Can we talk a little bit about your app? What the Goal Setter app does, how it addresses financial literacy,
where people can find it, how you came up with the idea, like all things Goal Setter.
Let's break it down. Yes, please.
So I told you I started teaching my daughter everything I could about money from the time that she was born. And when she was 8, about to turn 9, she said, Mommy, for my 9th birthday, I really only want 2 things. And I said, what's that? And she said, enough money to save for an investment account and a bike.
Come on, sis. You taught her well. Yeah.
Yes.
I need an account.
And
I need an account.
I patted myself. I did what Ryan is doing. See, I did that. And I said, job well done. But then I thought, if I can get every child like you to say that, I could change the world. And by this juncture, I had worked at Nickelodeon and ESPN and Discovery Education. And I had really cut my teeth on how do you create content and digital apps that are engaging and exciting, but at the same time educational. And so I thought, if I could bring all of that, all of those tools, all of those skill sets, all of that knowledge from the media and entertainment space into the financial services sector, then finally we could make finance accessible and fun and interesting and engaging everyone. And so I thought, well, if I can do this for kids, then truly it can revolutionize in a generation. It can start to close wealth gaps and have the next generation understand the minute they get their first paycheck, what should I do with this first paycheck? And how do I invest it? And how do I build wealth? And so that's how Goal Setter was formed. It was formed not because I wanted to be a tech entrepreneur. I quite frankly didn't even know what a fintech entrepreneur was.
Yeah.
It was born because I wanted to change the world. And all of the apps that I saw coming out of Silicon Valley that were finance apps, they were apps like Cash App and Venmo that don't teach anyone how to build wealth. They, in fact, just help people send and spend money really, really easily. Send and spend. And that's not what I wanted for my kids. It's not what I want for any of the kids in America. And I knew that it would take a different kind of founder with a different kind of background to create a different kind of app. And that's what Consider is.
Love that, man.
So that leads me to my next question, which is, what has been the biggest financial lesson you have learned that you pass down to your children? And by children, I mean your own children, and then the people that are now the children you've taken on with Goal Setter.
We're listening into our listeners, and we're like, all right, whatever you say, I'm about to do this with my children.
Right. And I'm going to do it with me too, because we can talk a little bit later about that, but like, I have not been the best with finances. So I'm like, all ears.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I love this question. And you just inspired me by saying that, whatever you say, we're going to do it with our children. So when I told you that my daughter said when she was 8 years old, I want enough money to start an investment account, that didn't come from the ether. It actually came from my financial advisor. And my financial advisor had said to me that his son, he challenged his son to raise $100. And he said, if you raise/save $100, I'll match you that $100 and we'll start an investment account for you. And so I said, that's a great idea. And so I went to my daughter and I said the same thing. Now, my daughter was running around. Remember, she's 8 years old. So she's like doing extra math homework, because you guys are right. I'm a techie, right? And so like math homework could get you $5 because I place value on your ability to do exponents when you're 8.
So in our family, it's jokes. If you tell a joke, you get $5.
Does it have to be funny? Because
it's gotta be
we gotta laugh legitimately.
Yeah, if we don't laugh, you ain't getting paid.
You ain't getting $5. Okay. I was gonna say I can rack up in your family, but maybe not. Okay. So, she was running around doing all these things to raise this $100 because she was super excited, right? If I get to $100, my mom will match me $100 and we'll set up an investment account. So her first question was, what's an investment account? And so I had to explain to her the concept of you take money and you put it into a vehicle that helps that money to grow and hopefully helps that money to grow faster than if you just stick the money into a savings account. And so I gave her examples of what that could mean, right? So if I have $100,000 today and you have $100,000 today, if you put your $100,000 into a savings account at 1% interest, then in 30 years, you'll have somewhere around $125,000, maybe $150,000, right? Don't quote me on the exact number, but you can run it easily. If you put that money into the S&P 500 and it yields 7% on average every year, which is about what that's done for the past 30 years. In 30 years, you'll have $761,000.
Big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
So she got all excited. Okay, great. Now I got to save this $100 so mommy can match the $100, right?
Yeah.
So she starts doing her extra math, doing extra chores around the house. She gets the $30. And then May 31st is coming up. And May 31st is her 9th birthday. And she realizes, as many of our kids do, they don't need anything. Please tell me what your boys need, Ryan. Sterling.
Nothing.
What do your boys need?
They don't need nothing. They're good.
Right? They're good. So she realizes there's not really anything I really, really want because I pretty much have all the core things I want. And that's when she's like, but if I can get that $70 for my birthday, that extra $70, I get to the 100 and mommy has to match me the 100 and I get the investment account.
Okay. You didn't raise no food.
That's right. So that's what I would say my most powerful lesson, both for myself and for my daughter, has been, right? Starting early.
That is beautiful.
That is really beautiful.
My mom, when I was 10, so not 8, my dad gave me my first $100 bill. She took me to the bank to start a savings account, not an investment account, but a savings account. And the savings account at that time yielded 6% on the dollar, right? Which is like, if you could get 6% on a savings account now, you'd be like, sold. You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting that kind of return anywhere. But like, there's such a huge difference between holding on and having your money actively working for you. So kudos to your investor and for you. And I think when we go home, I'm going to issue this challenge to our children.
I do have one question. Did you take her to did you was it important, or maybe it wasn't important because our kids are much more digital, but did you take her somewhere to do this? Like when she finally got that money and you finally matched it, did you show her? Did you go to your investment
brick
guy?
and mortar or what?
Yeah, like what happened after the money was gotten?
Good question.
Wow, that is such a good question. So I did not do that. I called up my investment advisor and we did a video phone call, and he talked to her and talked her through, hey, you have this $200. We're going to open up your account. So it felt very official for her. This wasn't just like, okay, great, you have $200, right? I've got it. I'll put it into an account and invest it for you, because that's very behind the scenes. They don't understand the celebration of the moment and feel that same kind of official feeling that Amari felt when he's like, hey, I need a patent lawyer. Hey, I'm right. They need to feel like this is their thing, so that they can own it and they can continue to build upon it. So that's what we did. So we sat down with my investment advisor together. But that was the moment when I realized that these are all things that are too far removed from children today.
Right.
And what I needed to be able to do was go directly to an app and open up that investment account for her on an app. And I couldn't do that then, but I can do it now because we have Goal Setter. And so those were all informing moments for me to say, what are the problems that we are trying to solve as parents? We're trying to solve problems of financial education. And so Goal Setter has these weekly financial education quizzes that come out to kids kindergarten all the way through college at their level.
Okay.
So in kindergarten, you may get a quiz about needs versus wants. Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse are going to Disney World. What do they really need to pack versus what does Minnie want to pack, right? So needs versus wants.
Yeah.
In 11th grade, you may get a quiz about APY versus APR. As a college student, you may get a quiz about mortgage interest rates and points on a loan.
Okay.
So you're learning all of these topics at your level, but you're learning them all through memes and gifs from popular culture. So they're fun and engaging and funny, and they're accessible, right? You can understand them. So we give the financial education quizzes because that's something that parents have struggled with and don't know how to do for their kids or for themselves.
Right.
Teach those concepts. But the second thing we do is, you all know being a parent is hard. I have too much to do. I don't want to ask my kid every week, did you do the quiz? Did you do the quiz? I've got a million other things to do. So our debit card actually comes with the financial education quizzes attached to it. We have a rule called learn before you burn. So on Sunday morning, your kid's debit card will automatically freeze if they haven't taken their financial literacy for the week yet. And the minute they take the quiz, boom, the card unfreezes again. So they are inspired.
Amazing. Like this, what greater incentive is like, oh, I got to spend my money, so I got to take this quiz? Like, oh, come on. Well, listen, live it, because I don't want to run out of time, but I want to thank you for being with us and for schooling us and helping us sort of like school everybody who's listening to this about the things that they could be doing to make their children wiser when it comes to handling their finances. If they want to follow you, Tanya, if they want to learn more about Goal Setter, where would we direct them?
Please direct them to Goal Setter Co. GoalSetter.co. So that's where they can go to find our website. And they can go there also on all social media, Goal Setter Co.
And they can find the app anywhere too?
They can absolutely find the app by going to the website, going to the Apple Store, or going to the Google Play Store. The app is in all of those places.
Tanya, thank you for your time, sister. Thank you for your wisdom. And thank you for being a guest on this crazy show that we call We Don't Always Agree, because we agree that you're pretty much the bomb. So thank you.
Yes.
Oh, that means so much to me. Thank you both for having me. This was so much fun. I was looking forward to this all week, and it certainly
Hercules.
met all of my expectations.
Right on, sister. We'll be back. We're gonna take a break and we'll
we'll take
back
a
with
little
more.
break.
We don't always agree.
You were beautiful, just like a flower. I could walk with you for a minute.
So we have a very special episode because we get to talk to not one, but two generational wealth builders, which is a very big deal. And we actually just coined that phrase.
I like
generational wealth builders.
Works for me.
We are joined by Bridget Coulter-Cheadle, the founder of Blackbird House, which is where we are right now. For those of you who are watching, she is the reason why we have this beautiful space at our disposal. And
it's not disposable.
It's not disposable. It is a disposal.
Come on now.
Yes. And it is we're here in Culver City, California, and it's a storytelling collective created for women of color and their allies, right? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and to be in all this love. It's wonderful.
Right on.
So I actually don't even know this. So this is the first time I'm going to hear this. How tell us, how did you build all of this? Like, what was the seed? Like, where did it come? What was the genesis?
Well, great question. I kind of call myself a recovering actress, more from, yes.
That's good.
Another thing we coined today. I love it.
But more from the business side of it. We had our kids and all of these things happened. So I pursued another career in interior design, ended up completing a master level program there, serial social impact entrepreneur, did entrepreneur work, did nonprofit work, just a curious creative. So the storytelling part of acting, I love that part of it. The business, I knew when I was at an audition and the casting director said, I'm stupid. And I was like, that's really an inappropriate thing to say to an actress.
The casting director said that you're stupid.
They said something stupid.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. No, they did not say I was stupid.
You stupid.
No, she did say I was one of them after I said the things that I said, which was more like, sometimes they make a comment about you and it's inappropriate.
And
I
you're
said,
supposed to laugh it off.
I have enough sense of self. I'm insecure like everybody else, but I have enough sense of self to say, you shouldn't say that to a young actor coming in here. You can take someone down a whole thing. And I was like, okay, I should retire. I should take a break from the business side of it.
Yeah.
All that to say, the beautiful thing that came up is just learning to speak for yourself, learning to understand these entrepreneurial things. As an actor, I had an agent and a manager, all these people who handled your business. And I didn't realize I also had my own voice. So as I was finding myself as an entrepreneur and a creative, I found myself in co-working spaces through, having an office or a meeting. And I didn't see a lot of people who looked like us and looked like me. And I felt excited to be there. And you'd have water cooler conversations with other entrepreneurs. And instead of being alone in your silo in your studio, you were in community. And I had this thought of wonder what it would be like if the tables were turned, if the people in the space, majority of the people in the space look like us. And we had safe space that's intentional, that is curated for the way we think, that's designed with that thought of your auntie's house. And at the same time, your chic auntie who travels and is a badass and is like, hey, I got this girl, but also keeps you in your place when you're going to, when you have too bad of an attitude. So the entire concept of it was, how do we tell our stories ourselves? How do we create a space to connect business-wise, be well, and what does that look like? And so my design acumen, I brought that into the picture as another character in the story. So essentially, I thought I was creating a community theater.
Yeah.
But
that's what the original intention
thing
was.
Like a community wellness space to gather and work. But what I've discovered is that storytelling studio, storytelling collective, the core of every business across every industry is story. What is your story? What is your why? Why are you doing it? So all the experiences that I had led to the moment where I was compelled to invest as much time and energy and self-funding as I could to create this space. Because when I went to people to invest, there wasn't a lot of excitement about our niche. It's always told us niche. So I was like, well, I guess I'm the one to do it.
2 questions real quick. How many different places did you scout before you found this location?
Great question. So I
Mhm.
opened I visited 35 different spaces. I looked online between LA, New York, and San Francisco. I looked online at 1,000 across the world. This is 2018.
Dang.
So I did the research, a Google researcher in
Okay.
that,
Mhm.
and then physically visited spaces because I wanted to understand the core of what that was. And then start to understand what are these, we're kind of talking about Black wealth and legacy
Yeah.
and generational wealth, and start to understand what are these mechanisms and these systems that are set up, and why does this group have more? Tech guys have a ton of them.
Right.
And now tech is everybody. Everybody's involved. So it was the curiosity of what does that space look like? And then once I realized LA, I kept being drawn to Culver City. It's Silicon Beach. And I wanted to represent. I looked everywhere, all, South LA, West, East. And ultimately, we do want to go to the Valley too, because there's a lot of us there.
Sure.
Yeah.
But Culver City, Silicon Beach, representation, excellence, beautiful design. I wanted our house to be in the middle of the conversation.
Okay.
And people walk by and they see our sign, the Black-owned sign by Patrick Martinez. They see us in here and they stop at the window. It's a very beautiful window at the front.
Yes, it's very
And they're like,
beautiful.
what is happening in here? They're not used to seeing us in this location anymore.
Right.
So that was a
Mhm.
very intentional placement. So I looked at quite a few, and we opened about 8 minutes from here, pre-pandemic. That when the pandemic shut us down, full on cliff. And this is our second location.
Wow.
So we recouped and gathered up for the 2 years and went virtual. And then we opened this.
So it didn't shut you down completely. You just had to sort of revamp things and restart, and now you're back stronger, better than ever.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about generational wealth or whatnot. What are your hopes for this communal space in terms of how it impacts future generations?
Beautiful question. And I'm so glad you are posing this on this. It is a universal conversation that's happening right now. There's a push-pull, but
Very
the
much so.
truth is we know, data shows, studies show that diversity and equity is good for everyone. It's good for safety, health, well-being, and connection. So generationally, there's information that we haven't been privy to because of the way that the fabric of this country was built on inequities.
Come on, Bridget.
So right now we're unraveling that fabric, and it's messy, and there's kinks and there's disturbances, and we're reweaving it with more equity, which means it's more colorful and beautiful and layered and textured. But there's a fear that means somebody will have less.
Like it's a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
It is a zero-sum game.
Thank you.
It's enough for everybody.
Everybody. There is enough.
Yes.
So that idea of generational wealth to me is both a combination of knowledge, access to knowledge, resources, and shifting and funding. Black women-owned businesses get less than 3%. Women-owned businesses, less than 3% of the VC money available.
That's
Black
wild.
women are 0.001% of the money. So if you don't have the resources to invest in your business and at the same time, we're still starting businesses more than any other demographic with less and doing better return on investment, which is why when we're in the corporate world, we're usually helping that company do really, really well, but we're not sharing in the profits. So generational wealth is shifting and understanding, shifting our own personal sense of self, which I frankly challenged with. I was just like, am I the one to do this thing? I feel like little old me. Honestly, people put a thing on you. You see the narrative. You're like, I'm just one worker bee person trying to figure this out, falling on my face in places, excelling in other places. And then essentially, once I realized we're a storytelling studio, and the story of that is how do we get equity? What does equity look like? How do we shift that? And then the magnet of people who come in, they share just some of the things that I didn't even know about wealth management.
Right.
You didn't know wealth. I was like, I got to put my money in the bank to an anonymous person. And now it's like, no, every single person who puts money in a bank should have a relationship with their banker. It's not an anonymous teller at the front window. It's who is your banker. And you have a right to that, whether you have $50 in the bank, 50,000 or 50 million, you should be able to have that relationship so you understand your opportunities. And then I didn't know. When people say your money makes your money,
Yeah.
these people's money make their money.
Yes, it does.
Your money makes your money.
Right.
Your investment, people borrow against it to make their businesses.
Right.
This knowledge was not something I knew until about 10 years ago. And so if we don't even have access to the understanding, I built my own wealth, made my own $1 million building houses because I had an interior design thing. And that was as a girl growing up, working class poor. I've been in government cheese lines. I know poverty and I do not like it. I don't like how it makes you feel.
Sure.
Knowing that and then being on a yacht and being in the most beautiful, glorious places in the world, I've seen this dichotomy. So what's the difference? It's information, it's knowledge, it's sharing access, it's being invested in, it's communities investing together. That's the generational wealth is like a whole ecosystem that I think we should share.
Come on, sister.
I love that. I'm retired.
I want to go talk to my banker.
I know.
I need a relationship. I got a relationship with my banker.
You got a relationship with your money.
You know what I'm saying?
A relationship with
They have a relationship with your money. They use it to make their money.
Yes.
You need to know. You need your money to be working for you.
If folks want to find out more about this beautiful space,
what do they do?
and
Where do they
everything
go?
that you're up to, where do they go?
They go to www.blackbird.house. You can go on our website. You can also email us at Blackbird. It's admin@blackbird.house. Or community, that's probably better, community at blackbird.house. Give us a call. Come by, take a tour.
I was going to say, if somebody is just in town or they say, I live near Culver City, I want to go by, can they come by?
They can. They should give us a call so somebody can give them a tour.
Don't just be showing up.
This that auntie's house who's like, girl, you didn't call. I got my curtains in. I'm wearing a bonnet. Like, you need to call me before you stop by.
Yes.
But then it's going to be good when you get here.
Okay, good. We'll do that.
Bridget, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing this beautiful space
We're
with
honored
us.
to be here.
And we'll be back with more. We don't always agree, but we agree that Bridget Coulter Cheadle is the bomb. Thank you, sister.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where you go, I'll go. Winter or summer.
And we're back. This is my favorite part of the show. This is why I'm hot, where we discuss something off the dome, right? 2 minutes to make your perspective clear. I get to rebuttal or vice versa. It may come to blows. We may agree. We may disagree, but often more times than not, I'm going to win. Would you like to introduce the topic, Bird?
Yes.
Bring your shit.
Okay, today's hot topic.
What?
On an old episode of the Steve Harvey Show, Steve Harvey said that he told his children he wanted to spend 85% of his money on his wigs. And
what?
I'm sorry. My bad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I apologize. Y'all, I'm sorry. I meant, because I was thinking about wig. Anyway, he wanted to spend 85% of his money on himself, and their mama.
Use a ninja
/ current wife, whichever wife. Who's that? I don't know, somebody's mama, whichever's mama.
Go ahead.
And he was only going to leave about 5 to 10% to his children.
Okay.
And some people believe that. Some people agree.
Yes.
I don't know. Where do we feel? Do we leave nothing to our children or leave something to our children?
Do you want to get into what you've said about this very subject?
I was told by my lawyer not to say it out loud ever in a public forum.
Copy that.
So that it would be recorded.
All right.
So
I
will say this. This is what I will say. So basically the question is, do you leave wealth? Do you leave legacy? Or I guess maybe even nada, right?
Go ahead.
No, we probably don't agree on nada. But what I will say is, I definitely think, so I have a good friend who comes from money. My good friend, Sarah Surrey, our classmate from NYU.
Sure.
She's blessed with wealth. She's blessed with beauty. She's blessed with talent. And what she has is her great-grandfather or grandfather, I'm not sure which, but some man in her lineage started a foundation.
Yeah.
And so he put all of their money into the majority of their wealth into this foundation, and they give grants. But what each family member does is they get a salary from being salaried employees of this foundation, right?
So you like that idea?
Well, I will say that it feels like the best of all possible worlds,
Yeah.
right? Like you are not forcing, but if you want to draw this salary, you have to work on behalf of communities and underserved communities, right?
Okay.
You have to give grants. You have to read the grants. You have to do the business of the foundation. You have to be invested in the foundation to get this money, right? She has to go twice a year. They got to go do things.
What is their foundation? What's the foundation towards?
I don't think it's any one particular thing. I think it's just a foundation and they have small grants.
What would you want your foundation be towards?
I would probably want it to be geared toward education, creativity, and intersectionality.
Okay. I'm not mad at that. I think that's a good answer. I want to argue. I want to say something like I don't like it. Because it didn't say, first of all, I'll say this too, and you'll agree with this. If you had said what you really think, then we would have to fight. But because you became politic over the last 72 hours, I'm forced to agree with you, and I'm not gonna say your business because I'll let you share your own brand of crazy with the world, but you didn't do it this time. So Ryan wins. Ryan wins on a mad technicality. If y'all knew what was really inside this woman's head, Lord of mercy! That's it for this episode of We Don't Always Agree. Please, you know what? Subscribe, tell a friend, come back. We're going to be here with more. Looking forward to seeing y'all. God bless. We love you. Good job, Bird. That was good. You won that one. You won that one. Yeah, but you don't tell the people who you really are.
Another little TKO.